What do you do when you're in high school and you find yourself with 2 dates for the same night? Well, you could take out your favorite and then pawn the other one off on the new kid in school who happens to be your exact double. What do you do when your special government agent survive a murder plot and then discover that a plastic surgery enhanced double has taken your place? Well, you could impersonate the double, infiltrate the enemy camp, and bring the evildoers to justice. These are just some of the crazy plots in our favorite TV trope, Doppelgangers and Evil Twins. Hi, welcome to Boss City. I'm Brian, and join me as I examine our favorite TV trope, Doppelgangers and Evil Twins. If you stick around to the end, I'll let you see my doppelganger. The pioneer in the field of doppelgangers, evil twins, and identical cousins was the Patty Duke Show. Aided by split-screen Mac technology, a 17-year-old Patty Duke made TV viewers believe in identical cousins. One pair of matching bookends, but different as night and day. So of course, over the 3 seasons that the Patty Duke Show aired on ABC, these cousins impersonated each other, leading to all kinds of wacky hijinks. These episodes really show how Patty Duke was an excellent actress, because you really did think, hey, these are 2 separate girls. But these cousins were 2 of a kind. Speaking of identical cousins, who can forget Samantha and her wacky, mischievous identical cousin, Serena, on Bewitched? In 24 appearances over the 8 seasons, Serena would frequently go blonde to either spite Darren, get Samantha in and out of trouble, or just get her kicks out of wreaking havoc. Now, the absurd factor on Bewitched was that with the power shown that these witches have on this series, they wouldn't need to necessarily look like a person they wanted to impersonate. But every time that Samantha needed to be at 2 places at one time, like we all do, she would call cousin Serena, even after all the stuff that would happen in the past, to take her place. Of course, chaos and laughs would follow. Serena was a troublemaker, but she could be convinced to undo the havoc that she would cause on Bewitched. But I Dream of Jeannie, Jeannie's twin sister, named Jeannie, evidently all female Jeannies are named Jeannie, but with a J. Well, this Jeannie was the true definition of evil twin. She would impersonate Jeannie and exploit her kindness and naivete to further her schemes to banish Jeannie and to take Major Tony Nelson for her own. Jeannie, too, would impersonate Jeannie in all kinds of evil exploits and then revel in watching Jeannie take the heat. Wacky stuff. The castaways living on the uncharted Gilligan's Island ended up playing host to nearly 24 visitors. Well, 3 of these visitors ended up being doppelgangers for 3 of the castaways. First up was Thurston Howell III. He started to hear stories on the radio of somebody claiming to be a rescued Thurston Howell selling off parts of his empire. Of course, this distressed him very much, and he was attempting to get off the island. Well, then, as you would know, in the Sherwood Schwartz universe, the fake Mr. Howell finds himself shipwrecked on Gilligan's Island. He soon discovers that he's actually on the island with the real Mr. Howell. He then knocks Mr. Howell unconscious and takes his place among the castaways. Of course, there's the obligatory side-by-side with the two of them, and the castaways can't tell which one's the real Mr. Howell and which one's the fake. Your typical doppelganger episode. Now, the absurd factor on this is that what are the odds that the fake Mr. Howell would end up on the same island with the real Mr. Howell? And they'd have no explanation how he became Mr. Howell's doppelganger. Was it plastic surgery? Was he born this way? Was he a twin separated at birth? They just don't say. Look closely on the scene where the fake Mr. Howell knocks Mr. Howell unconscious. He's dragging him out of his chair, his lounge chair. It's clearly a guy in a mask pulling Mr. Howell. In a fine performance by Tina Louise, a bitter Eva Graham arrives on Gilligan's Island, searching for solace in a self-imposed exile. Ginger and the other castaways give Eva a makeover to try to improve her spirits. They do such a fine job that she ends up looking exactly like Ginger Grant, movie star. Now, Eva has now transformed into the evil twin. She takes Ginger captive. She has a plan to take her place and leave the island with the other castaways, with them thinking that she is Ginger and Eva wants to stay on the island. She is discovered and ends up leaving alone, but still on her way to Hollywood to resume Ginger's career. Now, the disturb factor is like many of the visitors on Gilligan's Island. They arrive there thinking it's deserted and then ends up being inhabited by these 7 castaways. Now, why do they all pick the same island? You know, that's crazy. And one night, how is she able to imitate Ginger's walk, Ginger's voice in one day, so that she's able to convince the 7 castaways that she is Ginger? Then, of course, there's the moment in most of these episodes where you can't decide who's the real Ginger, who's not the real Ginger. But it's Gilligan's Island. After visits by Russians on 2 previous episodes, it's no surprise that Gilligan's doppelganger is a Russian agent who has had plastic surgery to look like Gilligan. Well, he arrives on the island, takes Gilligan captive, and quizzes all the castaways about their activities on the island, and creates all kinds of chaos. He makes a move on Ginger, but the real Gilligan escapes, but the evil Gilligan leaves before the other castaways see him, so they still believe that Gilligan is the culprit in all this chaos. But the professor in the tag finds this pocket knife that does all these crazy things, including a laser beam. And that is what Gilligan had been telling me about. So that's how the episode ends. Absurd factor is, why would the Russians go to all this trouble to get someone like Gilligan to go to this deserted island? And of course, what are the odds that 3 of the 7 castaways would end up having a doppelganger visit the island? Remaining in the Sherwood Schwartz universe, on the Brady Bunch, we find Peter Brady literally running into Arthur Owens, his carbon copy, in the hallway at school. The two share the same build, the same hairstyle, the same voice. The only difference is Arthur wears glasses. Peter takes Arthur home to prank his family. Like, you discover that you have a exact double. You don't take him home to ask your parents, hey, what's the deal with this kid that looks just like me? No, you take him home to play pranks on your family. Peter ends up double booked on a Friday night and convinces Arthur to pretend to be him and take out one of the girls that he has a date with. Well, of course, that's not going to go well. And it's one of those crazy Brady Bunch episodes where you watch Peter trying to entertain the two dates in two rooms at the same time because Arthur is late. And it's the Brady Bunch at its best. So now the absurd factor is that Peter and Arthur go to the same school, and no one has noticed that they are identical twins, except for the glasses, which I guess is the Clark Kent Superman phenomenon. Also, Arthur is never mentioned or seen ever again. One would think that if you went to school with your exact double, that he would be part of your life in some way, but not on the Brady Bunch. Another case of crazy doppelgangers were on the TV series Get Smart. Max and 99 are both lookalikes for imprisoned Bonnie and Clyde type bank robbers, Connie and Floyd. So both of them, Max and 99, are both doppelgangers for two famous imprisoned bank robbers. They impersonate the duo to get the information from Connie and Floyd's mentor. However, the real Connie and Floyd escape from prison in search of the same information that Max and 99 are after. Now, the absurd factor is both 99 and Max are doubles for these two famous criminals that have been in prison for 30 years, and no one noticed until then. Also, Connie was not the only double for 99. In a later episode, a chaos agent is a lookalike for 99 and kidnaps her and a plot to kill Max. So what are the odds that one character on television would have two separate doppelgangers? We find another case of a good lookalike impersonating a bad lookalike on the TV series The Monkees. Micky Dolenz is an exact double for imprisoned gangster Babyface Morales. Micky reluctantly agrees to help the police capture the rest of Babyface's gang. Now, naturally, the real Babyface escapes from prison, and then there's a showdown between Babyface and Micky. And then, of course, there's going to be a comedic musical sequence with great Monkees music. And, of course, there's going to be the split screen with the two of them both claiming to be Micky Dolenz. Now, the Monkees also did a Prince and the Pauper spoof in the episode The Prince and the Pauper. And there we find that Davy Jones is an exact double for Prince Ludlow, down to Davy's groovy hairstyle and his charming British accent. No one can tell them apart. So they, of course, being the Prince and the Pauper, trade places. And Davy's job is to try to woo Miss Wendy Forsythe, because if Ludlow doesn't get married, then he loses his place on the throne. So Ludlow is so shy that he can't talk to girls. Davy Jones, stars in his eyes. Davy Jones has the job of entertaining Miss Wendy Forsythe. Now the Monkees end up helping thwart this evil plot to take over the government. So the absurd factor is that Davy's the one Wendy falls in love with and the one that proposes to Wendy, but she ends up marrying Prince Ludlow when this evil plot is revealed. Davy is sad at the end of the episode because Ludlow got the girl and not him. And suddenly, an attractive blonde arrives on the Monkees patio, and she's a writer for Teen Tale magazine, and she's an exact double for Miss Wendy Forsythe. She's a writer for this magazine, and makes you wonder if the Monkees are a unknown struggling band. How does she know about them, and why she wanted to write about them? But of course, even though she's a stranger, the episode ends with Davy Jones kissing her. In McMillan Wife, Commissioner McMillan's evil twin, Claudio Manton, underwent plastic surgery. He wore colored contact lenses and studied and rehearsed Mac's voice to be able to take his place when Mac is kidnapped. Now, the absurd factor in this episode is that his wife, Sally, the wife in McMillan Wife, played by Susan St. James, who was great in that role, she could not tell the difference between the two until the fake McMillan uses her as a human shield. That was her first clue. Now, Claudio, up to his old tricks, escaped from prison, and returned for another episode later in the series. The Bionic Woman was a mix of fantasy and sci-fi. In the Mirror Image episode, Special Agent Jaime Sommers is abducted, presumably killed, and then replaced by a plastic surgery-enhanced double named Lisa, who is specially trained in all things Jamie. Things get complicated when Jamie escapes from her certain death. She impersonates Lisa to turn the tables on the evildoers and destroy their dastardly plan. Naturally, Jamie prevails in the battle between the twins because she's got like that bionic super strength. And you have the split screen shot at the end where Oscar's not able immediately to know which one is which. Lisa later escapes from prison and impersonates Jamie again on a future season, which goes to show you that they just don't make good prisons in TV land. Now, the absurd factor is when Jamie is impersonating Lisa, she learns that Lisa has a Southern accent. So she's immediately able to speak just like her without having ever heard what she sounds like. And then Lisa's boyfriend kisses both Lisa and Jamie within minutes of each other, and he can't tell the difference. On Hart to Hart, wealthy and glamorous crime-fighting couple Jonathan and Jennifer Hart were bike riding when Jennifer is kidnapped in a case of mistaken identity. The assailants soon discover that they've made a mistake, but then they believe that Jennifer is a better hostage. So Jonathan needs to convince the real target, Dominique, Jennifer's dead ringer, to impersonate Jennifer to make his rescue plan work. Now, the absurd factor in this episode is that Dominique and Jennifer are exact doubles, and they're riding their bikes wearing similar white outfits on the same street at the same time. Also, not only are they identical in appearance, they also the same voice. Now, these are just some of my favorite of the look-alike shows in the comedies and the dramas, but the Old West was not devoid of the doppelganger phenomenon. On the long-running series Bonanza, Little Joe is mistaken for his look-alike, an escaped prisoner who has been sentenced to die by the firing squad. But of course, his pa and his brother Haas arrive just in the nick of time with the real prisoner to save the day. Now, what prevents this show from getting an absurd factor moment is that Joe and his lookalike, both played by Michael Landon, are not dead ringers for each other. The bad Joe has different eyebrows and facial hair and a different voice. Side by side, you can tell them apart. It's interesting. In the Old West, you don't have to be a dead ringer to take someone's place. Now, we need to explore the series character wins a celebrity lookalike contest. And there's a bunch of those. But the ones I wanted to explore a little deeper were on Father Knows Best, where Betty Anderson wins a Donna Stewart lookalike contest. And with that, she wins a trip to Hollywood to meet the fictitious movie star. Now, she lets the attention go to her head while she's in Hollywood until she gets humiliated and has to endure one of the Anderson's parental lectures. On Here's Lucy, Lucy Carter enters a Lucille Ball lookalike contest, and she ends up meeting Lucille Ball, and Lucille Ball in this episode is wearing, Lucille Ball as Lucille Ball, is wearing a brunette wig like she wore in the then current movie Mame. And it appears that she's promoting this in this episode, but then they never mentioned the movie Mame. So I found that odd. At one point, for the side-by-side look-alike shot, Lucy Carter wears a brunette wig. On the Doris Day show, Doris Martin wins a Doris Day look-alike contest. And so she wins a trip to Hollywood, and her sidekick, played by Rosemarie, accompanies her on a trip to CBS Studio Center. Throughout the series, most of the close-up shots of Doris Day as Doris Martin would be shot through a filter to make her look more glamorous. Well, on this episode, the close-ups of Doris Day as Doris Day were shot through some heavy super mega filter, so it's like, I thought that I had smudges on my glasses because I couldn't even make out who it was. The absurd factor in all of these celebrity look-alike contest episodes is that the celebrities not only look like the characters in the show, but their voices are actually the same. So that's always been an absurd factor for me. The most classic evil twin occurrence in a TV show is the Enemy Within episode of the classic series Star Trek. The script, written by noted Twilight Zone scribe Richard Matheson, allows William Shatner's tour de force performance. Seems a transporter accident splits Captain Kirk into two. Good Captain Kirk, bad Captain Kirk. William Shatner creates two distinct sides of his personality in this episode, and it is the king of evil twins. So he does a great job, and he makes that episode what it is because it's an appropriate, over-the-top performance. Okay, so I promised you a look at my doppelganger. So let's take a look. I've never tried to take his place. As far as I know, he's never impersonated me, though I do keep an eye out for that. Well, that wraps up another exciting episode. I'm Boss City Brian, wishing you many blessings. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll be on that last train to London. Bye for now. Take care.